Do you know eating fermented food like sauerkraut is so good for your immune system and can help your gut health? My name is Jersey and I'm going to show you how to make the easiest sauerkraut ever. I'm opening my last jar and I figured why not show you how easily it can be made. I like to make it in the winter. As you see, this was January. I make it and I put it in my primitive room where there's really no heat during the winter, and it's a slow fermentation process, which I like the flavor more. I'll be making a semi-small batch. This is 3/4 of a gallon jar, which will give me a couple quarts to hold me over. This will take around 7.5, up to 8 pounds of cabbage to fill this 3/4 gallon jar. I'm going to show you a new way that I like fermenting. I got this food grade cap, came off of a food grade container, and I'm going to introduce an airlock into it. Let me show you how. I'm going to drill a hole in the center and put a grommet in it, and then an airlock in that, and we're going to fill it to the min-max level with 120 proof moonshine. You could just add filtered water. We're going to drill a 1/2-inch hole in the dead center. This is a 3/8 inside diameter to set the airlock in. I never weigh anything, I just wing it as I go, but in order to show you exactly how I did it, I'm going to weigh and measure everything so you can follow along. We're going to speed up the whole process. We're going to remove the outer leaves that are dirty and core it, and then we will be right back. And we are at 7 pounds. That is awesome. Let's proceed to shred them. You can shred any way you like. You can use a knife, you can use a hand slicer. We prefer to use our KitchenAid attachment that shreds it super fine. That's how I like it. I absolutely love organic fennel seeds and organic caraway seeds in my sauerkraut. That's purely optional. If you do not care for them, you can just omit them. Now, with all my other fermenting videos, I always use sea salt, but not with sauerkraut. I only use pickling or canning salt. That's my preference. So for 2 heads of cabbage, which is a little over 7 pounds, you need about 4.5 tablespoons of pickling salt. You can use 5, more or less, but that's exactly what you need to start with. I'm going to use 1 tablespoon of each spice because I prefer it like that. Make sure you save 1 outer leaf that's really nice for each vessel. You need 1 leaf per vessel. I like to layer cabbage, layer my canning pickling salt and my spices, and let it wilt with a towel over it for about 15 to 30 minutes before I start putting it in the jar and pounding it down. If you don't have a big enough bowl, you can gently push it down. Cover with a clean flour sack towel. Let it sit 15 to 30 minutes to begin to wilt. As in many of my videos, I always have visitors. Today we have Mama and her twin fawns. They always hang outside of the blogging room. And as you can see, we drilled the hole, put the grommet and the airlock in, and we'll talk about that in a minute. This is a designated wooden rolling pin. The only thing I ever use it is for fermenting, nothing else. If you do not have fermenting tools, you can do what I did here. I added a piece of linen, a rubber band, a little sinew to hold it down, and that's it. I'm fermenting corn right now, and then I have this glass Weck lid I put on. Then I put the linen over it, and that's all I'm using. A glass weight in the bottom. No bugs are getting in. It's working like a charm, so you do not have to have all fermenting types of tools to begin with. Check out my video, Fermenting Pickles. I'll leave the link above, and that will show you how you can get around if you're just starting out and you don't want to forego buying anything to ferment. It's been 15 minutes. You can see that it wilted a little bit. If you get busy, you can let it sit up to 30 minutes. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to layer this. I'm going to put a layer of cabbage. I'm going to pound it down, put a layer of cabbage, pound it down. There's nothing more to add. You can make your own brine if you don't get enough juices. To make your own brine, you add 1.5 to 2 tablespoons of pickling salt to 1 quart of filtered water. Stir it well, make sure the salt is dissolved, and you can add that when you're all done. As you see, we have about a pint left. I'm going old school, what I did 30 years ago. I put these in the old ball jars with the wire ring, but no rubber. Just put the glass lid on top, flip the wire lid closer, and that's all you have to do. I made a small batch of brine, 3/4 tablespoon of the canning pickling salt to 1 pint of filtered water, stirred it really well. Then I put it in the refrigerator just in case I need more brine for the sauerkraut as it's fermenting. So out of 2 heads, around 7 pounds, we got 3/4 gallon and roughly 1 pint of sauerkraut. Now I will add my clean and washed cabbage leaf. Now I will add some of that brine that I made to cover the leaf and make sure it's submerged in brine. Just remember, never ever put a gasket in the jar when you're fermenting. It needs to breathe. You can clamp down the wire ring. As you can see, there's enough space between the lid and the jar to let the gases escape. You don't have to, but I like to add a piece of linen and a rubber band and some jute. Just another way to keep the little critters out that try to get in. Add your large washed clean leaf. Add brine to cover the leaf. You want to screw this on tight. Add filtered water or moonshine to the min-max line in the airlock. Put your lid back on. It keeps the gnats out. Always put a vessel underneath anything you're fermenting. I'll go back in the house. I'll do it for the little jar also. Even though the air has a place to go and get released, it still can seep out of the top and the sides. In about 4 weeks, when it's time to can the sauerkraut, I'm going to give it a water bath. If you want to watch a water bath now, look up. I have a brief one that I explained when I did my 2 ways to make strawberry jam. Or subscribe and watch me do the full video when I can this in 4 weeks. I like to recap if you're not going to use an airlock. I didn't show it earlier, but with this one, I put a glass weight on it, and now I'm just going to cover it with linen and no rubber gasket, as I mentioned before, and a rubber band. And as you see, I have the vessel to place underneath it because it will seep. If you're not going to use an airlock, you can do what I did. I put a glass lid upside down inside of it, and then I covered it with a cloth that I wove years ago. It was woven with 100% cotton. Add a rubber band, and you can add jute to make it look good. Especially using a cloth like this, the juices will come up and they'll get the towel wet. You will need to wash and dry or replace it with another one every time it does. Otherwise you will get a lot of gnats and it could mold. I want to tell you a little story that something happened decades ago. Usually when Raymond helps me pound the cabbage, when he does, he pounds it so much that it absorbs all the liquid, and I have to add brine, usually every week. But when I do it, I don't get it as packed as he does, and I don't have to add any brine. But when he does it, I'm just letting you know, if someone really packs it tight, you need to check it in a week to see if it has enough brine. If not, you'll have to keep adding more brine. You should be able to take a wooden fork and you should be able to have it move. If it hits rock solid and doesn't move, you need to add a lot more brine. Long story short, yes, you can overpack this, and it's not a good thing to have it too tight. It's best to err on the side of extra brine than it is to have it so tight that it absorbs all the liquid, and when you go to can it like I did years ago, it was molded because there was no liquid for it to ferment in. There was no brine left. So I just wanted to share that with you. I remembered it when I asked Raymond to help me for this video, what happened years ago. So I am going to go back and probably add more brine to this. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. This is a great beginner recipe if you're new to fermenting. As long as you keep the brine in and check it every now and then, you should be good to go. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you'll be notified, especially when I do my canning video. And if you really liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and most important, please share on social media so we can grow together.